Now to our other big story. The markets closing moments ago as stocks erase much of the gains from yesterday's historic rally. So let's take a look at our interactive stock market heat map. This is brought to you by FinViz. It is showing the top 500 stocks in real time. Red indicating the stock is down. Green means it's up, and the size of the box represents market cap. Yesterday, we watched stocks bounce after President Trump pressed pause on some reciprocal tariffs. But today, it is a lot of red. So CBS News MoneyWatch correspondent Kelly O'Grady joins us live now to walk us through all of this. Boy, we had this great bump yesterday, and now I call today a slump. So what's going on?
Well, it could have been more than a slump, Jules. At one point, we were down over 2,100 points on the Dow, close to 6% on the S&P 500. And that's important because when it reaches 7%, it triggers what we like to call a circuit breaker, where trading actually is halted across the different indexes for 15 minutes. So things got pretty bad at one point. We were able to claw back some of those losses. So basically, though, what happened is yesterday, as you said, there was investor excitement that maybe these tariffs wouldn't be as bad as originally expected with that pause. But today, there was a little bit more of reality sinking in. Economists and analysts that I spoke to after the market closed yesterday said, we have not reached the bottom and we have not reached the end of this uncertainty and volatility. And that crept back into the market. Additionally, we got that tariff on China ratcheted up to a total of 145%, which just brings into question inflation, potential slowdown in economic growth. And so that's why you saw a big sell-off today, Jules.
Yeah, I was watching an earlier report, and you said we were all kind of on a sugar high yesterday, which I thought was pretty accurate. But what does this mean for American companies looking for their next move, especially those with big tech that rely heavily on China?
More uncertainty. That 90-day pause just puts a window that is extending all of these questions of what countries are going to have high tariffs. You know, is this going to be 10%? What countries are going to see deals done at the end of this? And so you're just going to see countries kind of, okay, clearly China's not the right place to be doing business. Do I move my production back here? Do I move my production to maybe a Vietnam or an India where there might still be a tariff, but it's not as expensive as having to move all of that back to the United States, where higher labor costs and startup costs, and of course it takes time in case many years. So I think you're going to hear a lot of confusion and uncertainty for companies that are trying to plan, especially ones where their inventory, they are planning now months in advance of where to order from, where to produce. But when it comes to those companies in China, they are going to be trying to figure out, how do I avoid that? Where do I go instead?
Yeah, as China's 84% tariff on the U.S. takes effect, kind of set the stage. What goods does China buy from the U.S.?
So this is an interesting one, right, because of the retaliatory tariff. So what industries in America are going to see it more difficult to sell there is essentially what you're asking. I think we've got a graphic actually where I can run you through some of the things that China buys from us. So farming, agriculture, this is a big one. The farmers in America got hit really hard the last time around under the first Trump administration, and we are seeing China target those specific industries again. We also sell oil to them, pharmaceuticals, basic chemicals, resins and synthetic fibers, motor vehicles. It's a long list. But what I will note is the U.S. buys a lot more from China than they do from us. So that's where that trade imbalance comes from that you've heard the president talk about.
All right, earnings season, it starts tomorrow. So what can we expect from that?
Yeah, more uncertainty. You're going to hear, Jules, uncertainty said by CEOs constantly. I'm going to be counting the number of times. We get the big banks reporting tomorrow, JP Morgan, Morgan Stanley, Wells Fargo. We are going to be listening to hear, what do they think about where the economy is going, and what do they think about where the consumer is going? Are they seeing a slowdown? That's going to be a really important moment, Jules.
All right, good information. Kelly O'Grady. Kelly, thank you.